Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Santa Cruz, California, October 1st, 2019, 3 o'clock a.m. Tushar Atre was an Indian immigrant. His parents had immigrated to the U.S. so they could take advantage of the wealth made possible by foundational Black American labor, and as a result, their son was able to start a company, Atrenet, in 1996. Atrenet is a web services agency for B2B technology. As a result, Atre became rich, and the 50-year-old tech bro lived lavishly in the Pleasure Point area of Santa Cruz, but he decided for his second act he would become a cannabis entrepreneur. He bought some land in the Santa Cruz Mountains and began growing weed with the intention of becoming a medicinal marijuana distributor. Atre's home was large and he had employees who were staying at the house with him. In the early morning hours of October 1st, 2019, Atre had been asleep, but not for long. Ear witnesses claimed that they heard loud male voices and banging. The commotion then moved outside with Atre screaming for help. Then the sound of a car driving away. That was when one of the guests called 911. And you could tell that this Atre character was considered to be a somebody by how law enforcement and prosecutors would treat this case. The sheriff's office responded to the 911 call in only 10 minutes. They found large amounts of blood out in the street. When they arrived, there was no sign of forced entry at the home, nor was there any sign that the place had been ransacked. There was a safe which had money in it, but investigators determined that the safe hadn't been opened. They also found that Atre's girlfriend's white BMW SUV was now missing. It took investigators 6 hours to track down the BMW's location. It was in the mountains where Atre had his cannabis farm. About 20 yards away from the vehicle, they found Atre's dead body. They determined that he had been both stabbed and shot. His hands had been bound with flex cuffs. The police canvassed the area around Atre's home and collected surveillance video from the neighbor's security cameras. They soon could see what had occurred. 3 men wearing hoodies walked up the street to Atre's home. One of them was carrying an assault rifle. After a while, Atre could be seen fleeing from the house, his arms bound behind his back. One of the assailants ran him down, tackled him, and then appeared to begin stabbing him. This first attacker only stopped long enough to switch places with one of his accomplices. This one then resumes stabbing Atre, who begins to bleed out. The one who had tackled Atre in the street then got into his girlfriend's SUV to use it as a getaway vehicle and to transport their victim to where they intended to kill him. But Atre surprised them by getting up and running away again. Though he didn't get far, he was bundled into the SUV and taken away. The home invasion and kidnapping was clearly about money, and whomever the assailants were, they were able to enter the home without anyone knowing it. So police suspected whoever they were, they knew the victim personally. While interviewing people to find out who might have had it in for Atre, 2 names came up more than once. Caleb Charters, age 18, and Stephen Lindsay, age 21. Both were in the National Guard. The 2 had worked for Atre on his cannabis farm for 2 weeks. Atre also let the young men into his home, but mostly so he could show them how lavishly he was living, which included showing them his safe. Investigators also found out that Atre was a harsh employer. He worked the 2 white men from dawn until dusk. A witness testified that things turned hostile after they had lost the keys to one of Atre's trucks on the farm. Atre berated them, saying his time was worth a lot of money, and as punishment he canceled their paychecks, which were supposed to have been for $2,000. A heated argument broke out between them, and Atre then forced Lindsay and Caleb to perform hundreds of push-ups before he would give them their check, which at this point was now for $1,400, $600 less than they were expecting. In fact, as it turned out, Atre had a reputation as a petty tyrant employer and was known for creating a toxic work environment, as well as withholding employees' pay if they displeased him. By this point in the investigation, Caleb and Stephen were now in Las Vegas. Police interviewed them, and they both claimed that they hadn't been in St. Cruz after they quit working for Atre. Months passed. The police made numerous appeals to the public. In the end, it was cell phone data from Charters and Lindsay that served to break the case. Police also arrested Caleb's brother Curtis, along with a family friend named Joshua Camps. After they were arrested, at least 2 of them began to talk to the police and a picture emerged. After Atre withheld their pay, Lindsay and Caleb Charters began to form a plan to get some payback. The group believed that Atre kept $1 million in cash inside that safe. They recruited their friend Joshua Camps, who was described as a wannabe cop with a gun fetish. He was the one who brought the assault rifle that night. Caleb had driven the vehicle, a blue sedan that the group used to go to Atre's home, and he also drove the vehicle to Atre's mountain farm where he collected the rest of his friends after the murder. And why was Camps involved? According to him, in a jailhouse letter that he wrote to Stephen Lindsay, he had been having money problems after his mother's death, and it was Curtis Charter who Camps said first approached him with the idea for how he could get some quick cash. Camps talked with Curtis's brother Caleb, who told him that Atre was a POS and had $1 million in cash in his safe. Camps claimed that he had said no originally, but that he changed his mind when they came to his house on the night of the killing. Camps then went on to write, "They told me the plan was to go to his place, take his money, steal his car, and that's it. But they also made it sound like he was some gangster dude and he would have muscle at his house, which was the point of the gun. I wasn't planning on shooting anyone. I was like, okay, even if we get caught, 4 years max." The letter continued, "Well, once things were in motion, I quickly learned that wasn't the whole plan. We tied him up, got the money, I laid him on the bed and started heading for the door. Nick grabbed him and started heading out the door. That's when stuff went really bad. The guy took off running. Nick chased, then tackled. I stabbed him. We got him in the car and took off. We got to the spot. The guy was messed up and bleeding out. I knew if we dumped him there, he would bleed out, so I decided to show mercy and just end it fast. I told him I was sorry and that none of this was supposed to happen, and then I ended it." Camps told police that he had shot Atre in the back of the head with the AR-15, and he even revealed where he had buried the murder weapon. Astonishingly, all 4 of them were charged with murder, not just Camps. That's astonishing because normally prosecutors almost never charge a group of white offenders collectively with the same offense. They usually reserve that kind of treatment only for black defendants. So I guess Atre or his family must have been really connected, given political donations or whatever, to be getting that kind of treatment from police and prosecutors. The 4 individuals had been arrested and charged back in March of 2020, but it would still be 5 years before prosecutors brought the case to trial. In March of this year, Stephen Lindsay was found guilty of home invasion robbery, kidnapping, and murder. In September, Curtis Charters was found guilty of the same charges, and on Wednesday of this week, Caleb Charters was found guilty of the exact same. Lindsay and Curtis have already been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Caleb comes up for sentence next month, and he'll most likely get the same. And as for Joshua Camps, he's waiting for his trial to resume. Even though he was the one who actually cooperated with prosecutors the most, he also confessed that he was the one who performed the actual kill. So in all likelihood, he's going away for life as well. The white media made it a point to emphasize, in fact I would say overemphasize, that these 4 white defendants didn't have a criminal record. You know, with black murder victims, they usually try to find out if there's anything that they can smear them with at all. But in this case, they treated 4 ruthless murderers with more respect and consideration than they do innocent black victims of murder. Also, if they don't have a record, why is it the killing came so naturally to them? And sure, 2 of them were in the National Guard, but there's a big difference between killing someone in combat and killing a POS employer after you tried to rob him. And Camps hadn't been a soldier at all. He was just a wannabe cop with a gun fetish. Alright, now I'm sure I'm going to get some people in the comments regardless who are going to ask, if this case doesn't involve any black people, then why did you make it the subject of this Friday's crime report? Because it shows an undercurrent that we should be aware of. Atre was a tech bro before he turned marijuana grower. The Asians have been gaining monetary power in California and in other places. Quiet as it's kept, white people are talked about as the criminal class by Asian communities in California. That is, when they're not scapegoating black people. This change in the balance of wealth is why there's so much anger aimed at Indians in particular. Sure, people will blame it on cultural clashes or claim bad Indian behavior in public, and while there's no lack of incidents to point to, it's also true that the behavior of Indians is no different than it's ever been. They didn't just start eating curry 3 years ago, or continuing to practice their cultural traditions in public a few years ago either. They've done it all along. These angry alt-right types are more angry about the Indians now than they are the Mexicans, and that's what's driven their anger at Trump over the B-1 visa issue. They know that Trump is going to continue allowing in people who the alt-right sees as their principal competitors. And the usual lies that they use against black people aren't going to work because they've allowed Indians to be fully integrated into the tech sector to the point that they're running a number of these tech giant companies. So it's too late to pull the, well, these people still aren't qualified card. And as this guy showed, a lot of Indians are comfortable bossing white people around, making them do hundreds of push-ups, making them beg for their pay, and then refusing to pay them regardless. That's what made them furious. And sure, this is a case that came to light, but the question is, how many other incidents similar to this have been going on that didn't make headlines? This Atre character was treating these guys the way that white employers treat people, and as they saw it, the shoe was on the wrong foot. So what's going on is a critical mass of white society, white males in specific, who have noticed that their monopoly is being challenged in arenas that they thought they had on lock. They're being outmaneuvered and out-hustled, and they're also seeing the people who did it treating them the way they've treated everyone else. The white media was just clueless, as usual, about what the real motive was. That's what the report was. We still don't know what their true motive actually was. Was it more than just money? Their reports kept on asking, why did they have to kill him? If this was just about a robbery, then why not just take the money? Well, as the old saying goes, if they say it's about the money, then it's about the money. And if they say it's not about the money, then it's really about the money. And it's this reversal of fortunes that's driving the hatred aimed toward Indians. You got Indians who have white people working on their plantations and are treating them like, well, certainly not like slaves. Nothing compares to chattel slavery. But they are being treated like serfs. They're being treated as if whiteness no longer conveys privilege. They're not in charge of anything. And in this case, they saw a man who clearly was not white, no matter what he may have thought of himself, and yet he was lording his fortune over them, reminding them that his time was valuable and theirs was not, and more importantly, he was making it clear that he could work these guys any way he wanted and then turn around and just not pay them. The system of goodies, giveaways, and guarantees was no longer there for them. And when you look at the comment sections of the online articles regarding this story, you find there's a lot of people who said, well, these guys should have gone to prison. He was a jerk. And that being the case, if they killed him, go ahead and give him time served and be done with it. They killed a non-white person, but the authorities hunted them until they were found, charged them, convicted them, and gave them heavy punishments. There was no slap on the wrist in this case, no judge lecturing the public that these criminals or their families were the real victims here, none of the usual racist garbage that happens when someone from the dominant society gets into a legal jam regarding harming a black person. And while it's not the only thing at the heart of the anti-Indian sentiment that's been going on, the truth is, this is the biggest issue that's driving it. Of course, this doesn't absolve those in the Indian community who have practiced anti-black racism and who have gone to great lengths to be a model minority, trying to take full advantage of that. And this killing, while it certainly got the outrage and ire of the Indian community, it's not going to change how they've been moving. But I, for one, found it very interesting that even though this Atre character owed his entire fortune to his connections with white people and his ability to integrate himself into a white industry, as soon as this man had himself some money and had his little farm, he said, sure, I'll go ahead and have some white guys working as my laborers. And then I'm going to turn around and tell them the first time you displease me, I'm just not going to pay you. Obviously, we have no dog in this fight, but it does go to remind you that white supremacy set up a number of buffer groups, usually from their colonies, whose job is supposed to be to stand between us and any of our demands. They can have some non-white faces that they can put out front and say, see, these people here, they're the proof that white supremacy doesn't exist, or at the very least, the black people, they're the cause of their own problems, etc., etc. Behind the smiles and the over-the-top friendly gestures, there's still very much hostility under the surface. As Your World beautifully put it, America was founded by thieves, slaves, and opportunists. And when the thieves and opportunists are in the same room together without black people to use as a distraction, it's not long at all before the knives come out. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Russell Richardson, Daryl, Kenneth Dickerson, James Porter, and Dia Williams. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.